What's going on, everyone? Thanks for checking out The Libertarian. Please share, like, and subscribe. We are the fastest growing libertarian podcast in the world. Awesome explosion intro, over the top, really cool. That's what gets us our subscribers, because I sure as heck don't. All right, so what I want to be talking about today is basically the tyranny that is the People's Republic of California. Good God. Governor Newsom over there has just gone power hungry. And for some reason, nobody's decided to stop him. I don't know if it's because that state is filled with woke socialists or if nobody knows how. But he has decided, along with the California Department of Public Health, to outline what the Californians are and are not allowed to do for Thanksgiving with their families in their own homes. So I'm going to read you just a couple of the rules that the California Department of Health has put in place in California for Thanksgiving. This is directly off their website, cdph.ca.gov. It says, to Californians, subject, guidance for private gatherings. Mandatory requirements for all gatherings. So note, this is not a list of suggestions. This is not the government coming out and saying, hey, things are getting pretty rough. There's some sicknesses going on, in case you haven't noticed. So this is what we suggest you do. In which case, I would be totally fine with that. These are mandatory requirements. This is them saying you have to do this under penalty of law. If you don't do this, then someone with a gun will show up to your house. Let's continue forward. Number 1, attendance. Gatherings that include more than 3 households are prohibited. Okay, so you, your cousins, and your brother's family, no, you can't do that. Okay, so I'm going to tell you right now, my family, it's my parents, my brother's family, my aunt and uncle, and me and my wife. That's 4 families in one household. Governor Newsom, if he was here in Indiana, he's not stopping that. Oh, and it says, remember, the smaller the number of people, the safer you are. Keep the households that you interact with stable over time. By spending time with the same people, risk of transmission is reduced. Participating in multiple gatherings with different households or groups is strongly discouraged. So essentially what he's saying there is don't interact with a whole bunch of different people. Okay, so if you have a household of 3 people, just try to keep those 3 people in your house. Don't go out and talk to a whole lot of other people, because then the transmission rate will be reduced. The host should collect the names of all attendees and contact information in case contact tracing is needed later. Oh, okay. So there's going to be a sign-in sheet for Thanksgiving in case the government needs it to track them down. God, I love freedom. Gather outdoors. Point number 2. Gatherings that occur are significantly safer outdoors rather than indoors. All gatherings must be held outside. Must. Attendees may go inside to use restrooms as long as the restrooms are frequently sanitized. I'm just so thankful that the governor gives his people permission to use the restrooms one at a time, so long as it's sanitary. How do people still live in California? Gatherings may occur in indoor spaces, that are covered by umbrellas, canopies, awnings, roofs, and other shaded structures, provided that they are at least 3 sides of the space, or 75%, are open to the outdoors. Okay. So you can have basically a roof over your head as long as you don't have 3 walls. A gathering of no more than 3 households is permitted in a public park, outside, or other outdoor space, even if unrelated gatherings of other groups up to 3 households are also occurring in the same park or other outdoor space. So if you're there with your family, it's your household and one other household, and you're in a public outdoor park, and then 2 other households in the same family go to the same park in the same general vicinity, that is illegal. Well, thank God they're watching out for our safety. California does have some of the lowest COVID deaths in America. If multiple such gatherings are occurring, mixing between group gatherings is not allowed. Additionally, multiple gatherings of 3 households cannot be jointly organized or coordinated to occur at the same public park or other outdoor space at the same time. This would constitute a gathering exceeding the permitted size. Does anybody remember a couple days ago where there were celebration in the streets over Biden's supposed victory all over the U.S., including California? And they were packed pretty closely. No masks. And even if they were, it still breaks this law. And nobody said anything. 3, don't attend gatherings if you feel sick or you are in a high-risk group. So if you can get sick, if you have a higher potential of getting sick, don't go. So, Grandma, sorry, you're not going to Thanksgiving this year. Oh, I know you always make the best stuffing, but you're not going. Maybe you can mail us some. Anyone with any COVID-19-like symptoms, fever, cough, shortness of breath, chills, night sweats, sore throat, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, tiredness, muscle or body aches, headaches, confusion, or loss of sense of taste or smell, must stay home and not come into any contact with anyone else outside their household. Now here's the thing with this. I agree that nobody with COVID symptoms should come into contact with anybody. I agree with that. But they are going so tyrannical with their laws that it makes me want to go out into public if I had COVID symptoms. All right? Though I am vindictive. Anyone who develops COVID-19 within 48 hours after attending a gathering should notify the other attendees as soon as possible regarding the potential exposure. I agree. That's a decent thing to do. What happens if you don't, though? People at higher risk of severe illness or death of COVID-19, such as older adults and people with chronic medical conditions, are strongly urged not to attend any gatherings. Okay, so are they strongly urged, or is it not legal? Number 4, we're a little over halfway, don't worry. Practice physical distancing and hand hygiene at gatherings. So not only are you not allowed to have more than 3 households at one gathering, and you have to be outside, you also have to be separated from one another. For any gatherings permitted under this guidance, the space must be large enough so that anyone at a gathering can maintain at least a 6-foot physical distance from others. Seating must provide at least 6 feet of distance in all directions, front to back, side to side. Everyone at gatherings should frequently wash their hands with soap and water and use hand sanitizer if soap and water are not available. A place to wash hands or sanitize their hands must be available for participants to use. Shared items should not be used during the gatherings as much as possible. Any food or beverages at outdoor gatherings must be in single-serve disposable containers. Single items should not be used during public gatherings, such as much as possible. Any food or beverages at outdoor gatherings must be in single-serve disposable containers. If providing single-serve containers is not possible, food and beverages must be served by a person who washes or sanitizes their hands frequently and wears a face covering. Self-serve items from communal containers should not be used. Okay, so you now have to have single-serve containers that you throw away every single time you're done, and then get a new one if you want to get a second serving. And if you cannot get that, you're not able to afford that, or you just can't do it for whatever reason, then only one person can get you food. They have to wear a mask, and they have to regularly sanitize their hands. They have to be the cleanest one there. They say things like should not be used as if it's a suggestion, but this whole thing is law. Number 5, wear a face covering to keep COVID-19 from spreading. When gathering, face coverings must be worn in accordance with the CDPH, unless an exemption is applicable. People at gatherings may remove their face coverings briefly to eat or drink, as long as they stay 6 feet away from one another outside their own households, and put their face coverings back on as soon as they're done with the activity. Are you serious? So, all right, thank God Governor Newsom cares so much about his people's health and their freedom, quite frankly, that he allows them to be able to remove their mask briefly as to have a bite to eat and then put it right back on. Gosh, I tell you, I don't know how we've survived this long in the Midwest. I really don't know. Man, I hope every state adopts this. I really do. I'm scared for Thanksgiving across the entire nation, but California, they will be safe, and I'm sure it's going to be easily enforced. I mean, how could you not enforce such a thing? Face coverings can also be removed to meet urgent medical needs. For example, to use an asthma inhaler, take medication, or if feeling lightheaded. God, he's so nice. Oh, keep it short. Gatherings should be less than 2 hours. The longer the duration, the risk of transmission increases. You have to use single-serve Tupperware, essentially, that you have to throw away. Disposable Tupperware that you have to throw away. You have to only have 3 households. Even if you're outside in public, you're allowed to use shade if you want. Only one person allowed in the house. Only to use the bathroom, if it's clean. You have to constantly wash and sanitize your hands. You have to wear a mask even while you're eating, but you can take it down in order to, take bites and such. You have to always make sure you're physically distancing, even when you're seated and eating. And you have to make sure that you're there for less than 2 hours. Now, from my understanding, coronavirus spreads in 15 minutes or less. So I don't really know what the 2-hour thing is, where they pulled that from. But I love it. Oh, man. Finally, rule number 7. Rules for singing, chanting, and shouting. Get down. Number 7. Rules for singing, chanting, and shouting at outdoor gatherings. Singing, chanting, shouting, and physical exertion significantly increases the risk of COVID-19 transmission because these activities increase the release of respiratory droplets and fine aerosols into the air. Because of this, singing, chanting, and shouting are strongly discouraged. But if they occur, the following rules and recommendations apply. Okay, before I even get to these rules, before I even look at a single one of these rules, can we just say right now that up to this point, this is already tyrannical enough, and that this guy should not be in power, and if he read anything from this beautiful book right here, which if you can't read it because I don't know if there's a glare or not, says the U.S. Constitution and other writings, then he would know that that is wrong, and maybe he does know that that's wrong, he just doesn't care. But more importantly, if the people would read that, then he would have never been in office. I remember when things were starting to open back up and they told people that churches were not allowed to sing praises. And what bugged me is that churches followed it. We're talking about singing praises to God. And you're going to let the state tell you no? That's pathetic. All people who are singing and chanting should wear a face covering at all times while singing or chanting, including anyone who is leading a song or chant, because these activities pose a very high risk of COVID-19 transmission. Face coverings are essential to reduce the spread of respiratory droplets and fine aerosol. People who are singing, shouting, chanting, or exercising are strongly encouraged to maintain physical distance beyond 6 feet or further to reduce risk. People who are singing or chanting are strongly encouraged to do so quietly, at or below the volume of a normal speaking voice. So if you're singing or chanting, do it quietly. And still keep your mask on. And stay away from everybody. Instrumental music is allowed as long as the musicians maintain at least 6 foot physical distance. Musicians may be from one of the 3 households. Playing of wind instruments, any instrument played by the mouth, such as a trumpet or clarinet, is strongly discouraged. If you are planning on spending your Thanksgiving in the great People's Republic of California, you are going to love it. Gosh, you're going to get to enjoy the good old American freedom while being able to know that you are going to be healthy and risk-free, and know that your governor cares for you. He cares. In fact, he cares so much that he's willing to burn the Constitution to protect you. And God, if that's not what you want from a politician, I don't know what else you could possibly want.